Hello, everybody. Are we back? Let's see if this works. Let me see if this is worth continuing. If not, we'll cover it tomorrow. It's pissing me off, dude. Every time we get to this subject, it fucking shuts off. Let me see here. Fucking, this pisses me off, man. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I'm not a conspiracy-minded guy. But when this stuff happens, it just makes me go nuts. All right, let's see if people even come back. Because now it's you threw me off. You ruined it. You ruined it. We were cooking here. Wait, okay, Robert is back. Thank you, Robert. This is insane. This is insane. Okay. So Robert's here. I'm very happy that you're here, Robert. Just frustrated. Let me see if I can see my stream live working. Okay, the stream is working. All right, we're back. All right. Hello, Ephra. All right, everyone's back now. All right, that's good. Let me get the chat on the screen. Dude, it just can't be that every time I've had the same issue. You pop out the chat and copy the link so it comes on screen. It's ridiculous, dude. I don't even get it. I don't get what the point of this is. It's not going to stop. I don't even have a strong opinion on this whole thing. I'm just talking about the American dynamic. Change this here. Boom. Okay, so let's continue. If the internet's good. So YouTube. Let's watch YouTube. No, we don't need this one. We need this one here. Perfect. All right. All right, let's watch Steven Crowder, please. Let's hope YouTube doesn't do anything about it.
All this is not unconnected to the fact that we're soon to be heading into midterm year, and then after that into general election mayhem for 2 more years. It is the beginning of the end of Donald Trump as president of the United States, assuming he doesn't try and uproot everything and run for a 3rd term, which I don't think he will. And what you might be seeing now is a kind of battle for the heart and soul of where the conservative right in America goes post-Trump. Now, am I right? Am I wrong? What's your view?
Well, thanks for having me. I think you're right. And I think, look, and I know I just saw the tail end of Benny. We all know that we have the First Amendment. We all know that we have freedom of speech in the country. I don't think that's what we're discussing here.
So once again, let's address this, that Steven Crowder here is saying he's actually within the frame that Piers is putting, which is that this is now a confrontation between supporters of Israel. I'm not going to say that. Supporters of a foreign country and the United States. They're being pitted against each other within the same party. All right? Guys, don't say that country in the chat, please, or their intelligence agency, because this is so annoying. This is the most annoying thing. All right, let's continue. Steven Crowder is agreeing with the frame of MAGA versus the other MAGA, and let's watch what he's saying.
Like you said, we're discussing the future of this country. And there are some rifts on the right, but I want to be clear, there's far more of some civil fracturing on the left than on the right. So the through line isn't really just someone's extreme or someone's old guard. The through line is clickbait. The through line is you have a lot of people who have taken both sides of every issue so that they're kind of on, they kind of can't be attacked, and your position is indefensible. What I would like to focus on is a prescription for people at home where they know how they can filter through people and these commentators out there and maybe people they can trust. It's 5.
Guys, we can't be dropping the Z word in here, or I hate every. Dude, they're going to take it down. Like, they're going to fucking do something. Because I'm not having any issues right now with this new title. So,
points. Right. I think, one, people need to ask themselves if we agree the woke left is a threat, because this is very important. They're still out there. They just killed one of our friends. And in doing these Change My Minds on campus just 2 weeks ago at Oklahoma University, I had to be escorted in an armed vehicle 3 times because of threats, close calls. They're basically on their deathbed, figuratively, everyone, just to be clear. And instead of finishing it, the right now is deciding to infight. So number one, people need to look at this commentator, whoever it is, whether it's Ben Shapiro or Nick Fuentes.
And once again, we see here the same attitude that Benny Johnson had. That's why it's important that Steven Crowder is here, and he's doing this thing where he's trying to wrangle people into staying at the Republican Party. Because a lot of people are leaving. They're saying that people are we see the approval numbers going down for Trump. We see people starting to leave this party. Zoran Mamdani was a huge sign to these people, whether he delivers or not, that people are not satisfied with the United States foreign policy in regards to a certain country. And here's Steven Crowder confirming that what he wants is people to stay in the party, that this infighting is wrong because it will resurrect. There will be a necromancy of woke. I don't think so. I think woke is gone, and I think it was dead years before this. I mean, I go by Piers. Piers says that it died now because he wrote the book, but woke has been dead for a while, at least since 2020, right?
Someone at Daily Wire or Tucker Carlson and say, this commentator, this host, what have they done to fight the left? We have clear examples with Scott Pressler, with people like Charlie Kirk, people who've actually made a difference. What kind of coalition can they build without compromising fundamentals? Let me explain to you, give you a really clear answer. Israel. I don't think it's as big of a wedge issue with the half that elects presidents as people think. My position, said it to Ben Shapiro over a decade ago. Defund all sides of that war. Okay, we shouldn't be sending money to Israel, nor should we be sending it to Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon. Here's the thing. That's a very reasonable position that many Americans hold, and even my Jewish friends have no problem with it. Can the people out there, these commentators, build a coalition with that? If not, they're not actually looking to build a future for the country. Let's take H-1Bs as an example. Ben Shapiro out there defending it. I cannot imagine how anyone could defend this at this point when 80...
This is the same thing Benny was saying. It's that we diversity is our strength. DEI is good within the Republican Party because this way we can really get to the marketplace of ideas. Dude, I'm getting uncomfortable with him even saying the word. This is no joke, right? Dude, come on. I can't be like a conspiracy head here, right? There's no issues now, knock on wood. But there were issues before, and they were only started then. And now when I change the title, there's no issues. Whatever, man. This is retarded. Like, this is pissing me off. This is insane.
80% of the program is antithetical to the reason of the program because they're being put into junior positions. We need to do away with it. Can the people, the old guard, can they build a coalition with that? And finally, will these people show up to defend their viewpoint in hostile territory? I can tell you this. I've extended an invitation to Ben Shapiro, to Mark Levin, to Tucker Carlson, to Candace Owens, to Nick Fuentes, and I've heard every kind of response out there except I accept those words. So I don't know what happened to the anyone, anytime. I would platform Mao if he was alive today. Doesn't mean I would agree with him. If Xi Jinping said, hey, you know what, I want to have a chat, I'd make really clear where I line up. Sure, we have freedom of speech, but we do have to decide where we want to move forward as a country. And if we get rid of Donald Trump, who's very flawed, who's made some missteps, we can talk about that. Who are we going to replace him with? Because now people are going after J.D. Vance. Do we just want to serve leftist masters? Because I will tell you this, I'm an extremist on that. I think that modern day leftism is a death cult. And if you're serving them by fracturing the right.
So this is just corralling. This is just corralling. This is saying, hey, look, better the devil you know. That's essentially what Steven Crowder's whole claim is. And I don't think that that's persuasive. I don't find it very persuasive, Steven Crowder. I don't. Now, since we're running low on time because of this stuff, let's skip to the part where he talks about Nick Fuentes, which is how we're going to get to our last story, which is Sarah Paine, someone who I think I Hate Everything has brought up before.
Inviting him on. Because I think there comes a point where you can't ignore somebody's rising influence. He is getting talked about so much right now that he's exuding an influence over people. You know, I had the same argument really with someone like Andrew Tate, who I've had on a few times. I think it's important when someone has a big, big following and are saying whatever they want to say unchallenged, that they come on to somewhere like here, where I don't come at things from a partisan political ideology, and I challenge everyone.
So this is confirmation that Piers is going to have Fuentes on. I can't wait. We're going to watch that whole thing. There's not even going to be Schizo watch that day. We're just going to watch it.
Right? And I think that's actually a valuable exercise in public discourse. We don't live in the old days where people only had mainstream media outlets to do this stuff. You know, people online now can have exponentially higher audiences, like Fuentes. And as their influence rises, so, in my opinion, does the legitimacy of talking to them and finding out what they really believe in. You know, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. When he's on record as saying he loves Hitler, what does he mean? If he genuinely If he genuinely
He said he loved
loves
Stalin.
Adolf Hitler, the bloke's a fucking idiot, right? But if he's talking about, as you put it, as you framed it, about what he may have been intimate, I don't know. But I'd be interested in having that conversation. In the same way that when
Can you imagine when Pierce has Fuentes' eyes? Hang on. Say the N-word. That like it's gonna. It's going to be funny. It's going to be funny to watch, man.
I have Tate on. I agree with some things Tate says, but I hammer him over his obvious misogyny. I think the two, someone can be right and wrong about two things, right? Even Churchill, my great hero, wasn't right about everything. If I was interviewing him, I would find some things to criticize Winston Churchill about, right? It doesn't mean to say I think he's a bad guy. I think he's an absolute hero, my all-time hero. However, everybody is flawed, right?
Right. Yeah, and plus, if you were interviewing Churchill, he'd probably be drunk. And you'd go, oh, well, I guess that's true. No one is perfect. But I will say, yeah, look, we need to be able to have these conversations, but this litmus, these do matter. What have they done to defeat the left? What have they done to fight the left? Can they build a coalition? Something else that I think is pretty important. Can these people, whether it's Ben Shapiro, whether it's the people who say they're funded by Qatar, or there's other people say, you're a Zionist shill, no matter, can they take opinions at face value? Can they take a disagreement without resorting to, you're paid by Israel? I can say this, not one dime from a foreign nation. I own everything about this company. I've been here since 2009 with
And this was the suspicion that I believe Richard Spencer had about Tucker platforming Fuentes, which is that he's just trying to corral that movement, that Groyper movement, into the mainstream conservative side so that they can get behind J.D. Vance. And I think here we really see the revelation of the method from Benny Johnson and Steven Crowder, where they're trying to bring these guys in.
Blue bedsheet when there was no money out there. If people say you're paid by X, in my experience, those are usually the folks with something to hide, something else too. I would call and I would ask you to do this. Everyone out there, be transparent with your references, with your sourcing. We provide a bibliography every day. I know it's a lot more work, but you'll have a lot of people who say, I claim this and take my word for it. We don't do that. So if you put people through this filter, and then you have to ask, what's the end game for this country? If we want to do away with Donald Trump, because by the way, 600,000 Chinese students, why? Uncapped H-1Bs, why? It's asinine. Pam Bondi with the Epstein files, there's a reason that I'm not a fan of hers. There's a reason I never covered her confirmation, namely she's an idiot, but she has no idea what she's doing. These are legitimate grievances. But then to go after J.D. Vance and say we're going to throw away our MAGA hat.
So complain all you want, but do not go after the Crown Prince. Do not go after J.D. Vance.
Here's the thing. You can do that online. It's not going to be the half of this country that elects presidents. These people, though, Pierce, I do need to tell you, people like Nick Fuentes, they have a legitimate grievance. There was some gatekeeping going on. And I've experienced this too, by the way. It wasn't over the Israel.
This is all, I don't want to call it that, but this is therapy talk, dude. This is to say, your concerns are valid. We're going to include you. Look, and I'm not a Fuentes fan, dude. I'm not like shilling for him or anything. What I'm saying is that this is clearly an attempt to co-opt that movement. Be like, hey, you're bringing up valid things. Let's talk about them. Let's actually talk about them.
Real thing. But you have some conservatives who are cozy with big tech, where they're fully monetized, their views are permissible, and people like Nick Fuentes, they're deplatformed. I'm at Rumble. I obviously would have pull at Rumble. I've been there for a long time. I have been painstakingly clear. Nick Fuentes, of course, should have a platform if he's not breaking the law. That's the difference between some of the old school conservatives who say free speech, but behind the scenes, they glad hand a little bit. And if these people are radical, and I don't know that they are.
Yes, Mr. Elu says, we hear you, we see you. That is therapy talk, dude. This is how you, I don't know if you've been to therapy. I'm not going to judge it. But I've met people that have gone to therapy, and you find that a lot of psychopaths, even Jordan Peterson says this, that go to therapy, come out with a lot more knowledge into how to use your emotions against you. And it's a problem. Like, you don't want those people in therapy. And anyone who's in the media is going to be like this. I'm not saying Crowder in particular, but all of these people, man, and Mr. Elu brought up Charlie Kirk, all they're trying to do is coalesce the movement around J.D. Vance. And I don't know if that's going to succeed, man, because the numbers are dropping like flies. And the case to vote for Trump in 24 or JD is going to be very hard to make if the economy continues this way. Effer says, Steven Crowder has some funny skits, but I don't understand his rage. I can almost guarantee his ex-wife was a lefty and he hates her. Oh, my God. Yeah, he does seem like an angry fella. I'm not sure why. Everything says, Steven Crowder's a fan of the show. I see. Maybe. Maybe. I would love to meet Steven Crowder. I would love to debate Steven Crowder. It'd be a lot of fun. Flat says, I'm a fan of Steven Crowder. He's probably the only one individual that actually produces receipts of his content on every single production and facts count. That's true. That's true. He does actually carry around a book with citations. So that counts for something, right?
That's why I'd like to have a conversation with them. We do need to ask what radicalized them. That's a valid, if we believe that they're radical. But I think they have some legitimate.
Notice the word of the use of the word we. Who is we? Who is we? Because Steven Crowder has just said he's not part of the Ben Shapiro establishment. He's not part of this and that. So who is we? We is an amorphous term here being used to say, I assume it's just like J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is just getting people to propagandize on his side.
And you have one side saying, these people are despicable, these people are offensive. Those are victim bitch words. Don't use those words. And then you have people trolling saying, I love Stalin. I don't think that anyone who's right-wing or conservative loves Stalin, but I'd like to follow up. I think it's interesting.
And here we're going to transition to Stalin talk. We have to talk a little bit about Stalin. First of all, this isn't true. Some of the first supporters of Stalin that were not like Reds were actually white army generals that turned away from the monarchist movement. They decided that actually the reality is that Stalin was a perfect encapsulation of Russian despotism. That's how they saw it, okay? They saw him as a despot that was actually making things in the way that worked for Russians. There's various examples of this. One of the famous guys was in Mongolia. He wrote a letter to Stalin. He was like, I'm sorry, I have seen the light. And Stalin was like, come back to Moscow, dude. It's cool. And he fucking shot him. So, but this is not true. There were plenty of conservatives from the start who supported Stalin. Okay? So I want to transition here to Sarah Paine. We're going a little over time, but I want to go over this. Sarah Paine is one of these American historians who works for the Naval Institute, I believe. I've never liked her. I've always seen her as a propagandist. Inherently, that's what she is. If she's a military scholar, she's going to propagandize. And everyone's propagandizing all the time. That's fine. But I just don't see it as very useful information. I don't find her tone very persuasive. I find it very annoying. And I just pulled up 3 videos here because I get some of her shorts. And her shorts are about how Stalin was evil. And we're going to watch them because the thing that I don't get about these shorts is it's kind of like Sarah Paine, you forgot to attach the Giga Chad image to this. What? Like, she's glazing him as she's condemning him.
Per the Yalta Agreement, Russia finally gets in the war in Asia. About time. They rapidly take Manchuria. That would be the normal thing, but here's the abnormal thing. They also take away Manchuria's industrial base. That would not normally be what you do to someone. They take 83% of the electrical power equipment, take it home to Russia, not turning lights on in Manchuria. 86% of mining, 82% of cement making, 80% of metalworking equipment. Plus, they take 640,000 Japanese POWs to be slave labor for decades if they ever get home at all. And they also take the northern islands, which are still under dispute today. But if you think about it, if you're going to do indemnities or reparations or whatever this is, China had been fighting Japan in one form or another for 15 long years. Russia comes in at the cameo performance at the very end. So if there are indemnities to be paid for whatever Japan did, surely China, not Russia, should have been the recipient for all this stuff. In addition, not only does Stalin walk away with the industrial base, but he walks away with Mongolia as well. How does that work? The Yalta Agreement also stipulates that the status quo shall be maintained in Mongolia. So then you have to look at, well, what was the status quo? It was called Russian sphere of influence in the north, Chinese continuing control in the south. Mongolia, which had always been both those places, had been part of the Qing Empire, had never been part of the Russian Empire. And moreover, Stalin had already taken Tanatuva in 1944, and it looks small in this map, but it's bigger than England, had lots of gold, which the Soviets have monetized long ago. So if you add up all the territory that the Russians took from the Chinese sphere of influence, here's what it really is. It's greater than all U.S. territory east of the Mississippi. This is not your normal land grab.
I'm sorry. So we, not to go in defense of looting, it's a war. It's a war. What are we talking about here? It's a war. So, a Man of Steel can't take some steel production when he's conquering, when he's trying to liberate the world from fascism? What are we talking about here? This is literally insane. And suddenly, Sarah Paine is a Chinese nationalist and China deserves to get these reparations, not Russia? You forgot to attach the Giga Chad image, Miss Paine. I don't understand this argument at all. And I don't think it speaks to me. I think it speaks to her. First of all, an American military person shilling for China, I'm immediately suspicious, dude. You are not on China's side. What is the problem? What, you can't do a little looting? Did the Americans not do a little looting in Europe? What are we talking about here, folks? What are we talking about? And they get worse. They get worse. Like, it's ridiculous. All of this shit is like, oh, he's evil. But what you're describing is a guy who was... Can a Russian boy live? Can a Russian boy breathe?
There are dictators all over the world who stay in power for a long time. Do not dismiss their ability to stay in power. They're surfing quite a wave wherever they live of people who butcher each other with great regularity. I would suspect that many of these long-term dictators have EQs that are off the charts. When you come in the room, they just gut feeling know whether they're going to cap you or not. And if they get a few extra people, so what, right? Just so they get rid of all the people who are going to cause them problems. Also, what Stalin does is you have multiple security agencies with overlapping jurisdictions. And so no one quite knows who's running the show and who's in power, but they're all funneling information to Stalin, so he has better information than anybody else. They're very good at staying in power. They're really good at managing that problem. It does not bring prosperity. That comes from the world of maritime trade, of following by international law instead of capping your trade partner. You're not going to get a second trade deal if you do that. It's just so much more wealth creating, this alternate universe, but that's not where these continentalists are.
What? You don't develop? I'm sorry, what was the hydrogen bomb? What was Sputnik? What was Laika? What are we talking about? Oh, they're really good managers, and that means that they won't be prosperous. What? All of these arguments are retarded. This doesn't make sense. Oh, he was a psychopath. Okay, cool. There's a lot of psychopaths out there. There's a lot of psychopaths. There's good ones and bad ones, all right? Are we going to argue that some people in power are good guys and other ones? Because now we've really lost the plot. If we're going to start saying that, oh, you know, he got rid of his political opponents and that makes him bad. Dude, what? Everyone does this. Everyone does this. This is not a specific condemnation. She says all the dictators. Dude, all of the Democrats do this too. Every Democrat does this as well. I'm sorry. What the fuck are we talking about here? What are we talking about? And let's go look at the last one. It's the whole thing is like this.
Radios in over the Comintern and he says, no, you can't kill. In 1936, the communists in China kidnapped Chiang Kai-shek, who's the leader of the nationalists, and they're about to kill him. And Stalin radios in over the Comintern and he says, no, you can't kill Chiang Kai-shek. Even though he's your enemy, he's been massacring you. You got to let him go. And in exchange, Chiang Kai-shek has to promise to create a united front against the Japanese. Now, there's 30,000 communist guerrillas when they're fighting the Japanese at this period, and there's 1.5 to 2 million nationalist troops. So this just seems like a brilliant move in Stalin's part in retrospect, because if they had killed Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalist forces might have dissolved. There would be a puppet government installed by Japan.
That's why he did
it would be a terrible thing for Stalin. It just seems like Stalin makes a lot of right calls in the theater in Asia at this time. In the sense, look, Hitler's another dictator. He's like declaring war against America, but even when he doesn't have to, right? He's just making these crazy moves. Stalin is like a special thing to explain.
But you can do this in retrospect and go crazy move. When you look at history, you think it had to turn out that way because you can reverse engineer something, at least a plausible story of why you wind up where you did. And it may not even be the right story, but it yields the correct answer, so you think you got it. But if you look at the future, how's this thing going to end with Xi Jinping and Putin? We don't know. And then afterwards you go, oh, well, something is profoundly stupid based on subsequent events, but we don't know.
Oh, okay, so you get no credit for anything you did because it could have turned out that way. We don't actually know why it happened. Maybe it was, dude, telling Mao that the KMT needs to be there to defeat Japan, and they're also talking like this American distancing from Stalin. You were allies. What are we talking about? Was it not beneficial for both to win the Second World War? Otherwise, what were they doing together? This attempt to distance the United States from this, to me, is pathetic. It's pathetic. And when Steven Crowder says, like, why would a right-winger like Stalin? Well, dude, just watch a couple of Sarah Paine lectures, and if you can get past the shrewd voice, you'll be like, yo, this guy was kind of a badass. This guy was fucking cool. He figured out how to defeat the Japanese and the fucking Germans. Like, how did he do that? I don't know, but he fucking did it. And I'm going to give him his laurels. When he did it, he did it. So, I've never liked this Sarah Paine lady, but I think if you watch this ironically and you're like, I see what you're saying there. Like, she's probably, she's like implicitly shilling, you know? And you don't have to like dictators, dude. I'm not saying that, but you cannot deny the talent of Benito Mussolini, all right? In terms of getting power, all right? He was a terrible fucking planner when it came to war. But these skills, like this idea that, oh, Stalin is bad because he was a psychopath. What was FDR? FDR threw guys out of windows, okay? Look that up, all right? FDR was doing all sorts of wild shit, okay? So let's not pretend, let's not wash our hands here of this. We saw Dick Cheney earlier, all right? Dick Cheney has some bodies on him. He's a great sorcerer, but he has some bodies on him too. So let's dispel with this notion that this was random or it was not fortuitous. You don't have Stalin. You don't have the war. You don't get Bretton Woods. You don't get American dominance. All right? So miss me with that stuff. All right? Let's catch up with the chats. Late ending today. Late ending. Full Hat says, hey, Leo, are you going to talk about the black female congresswoman in Florida that stole millions of dollars from FEMA and just got arrested? I'm going to look that up, actually, Full Hat. Let me screenshot that. I'm going to look that up. Perfect. I didn't know about that. This is my state. I should know. Mr. Elu says Stalin is base. Does she not know what Japan did to China? Complaining about Japanese slave labor. As if the Americans did not use German slave labor. As if... Dude, I'm not saying slavery is good. But, I mean, it's a war. It's a war. There's conscription in Ukraine right now. Like, this is just the state of the world. You know, and prisoners of war being put to work. You know what the Japanese were doing? Prisoners of war cutting their fucking heads off with katanas. So what are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? Just ridiculous. Uncle Joe says mystery. Exactly. He was Uncle Joe in America. Vlad says, I remember as a child growing up watching ABC, CBS, and NBC, and the Russian people standing in line for bread and milk under the communist bloc. Ronald Reagan said, we are only one generation away. And it's true, but that wasn't Stalin, man. I don't know how old you are, Full Hat, but that was probably, it wasn't even Andropov. That was probably Gorbachev that you were watching. Yeah, it was Gorbachev under Reagan. Everything says, I would call the relationship more of a lesser version of friends with benefits. Exactly, right? But you don't get to pretend that you didn't get anything out of it. You know, this friends with benefits. You had a good time with the guy. Maybe you don't like him in retrospect. Hey, you empowered him. And people like to say, oh, he wouldn't be able to do it without the United States. Well, he figured out how to use the United States, all right? He won a two-front war, Mr. Exactly. Who can do that? Oh, he made people fight at the front lines at the point of a gun. Oh, you know, if you didn't sign up for the army in America during World War II, you were socially shamed by everyone. It was basically suicide, social suicide. So, all right. Mr. Elu says, Mussolini used to be a socialist. Exactly. And FDR was a mob boss. Absolutely. And without Stalin would be the man in the high castle. Maybe, right? He defeated one of the greatest armies in all of history. He did it. And Full Hat says socialism is communism, communism is socialism. I don't think that's true, Full Hat, but all right, everybody. Get your What Would Piers Morgan Do bracelet. It links in the description. I'm going to change the title to the episode. I think we're on 34. I'll make it 34 and a half so that they can stay there. This sucks. I'm not going to be able to farm fucking clips off that other one. I'll see probably the first part, but YouTube pissed me off, man. Why can't I talk about the Middle East without getting, like, destroyed? All right, everybody. I appreciate you tuning in. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share the channel. The channel's growing at an accelerated rate ever since I started putting up clips. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Get more people on the stream. Consider signing up for the YouTube membership or the let me put that up there. The Patreon. Where's the Patreon? The Patreon right here, which is $5 or $20. And join the Discord because that one is completely free. And then we can crowdsource and find cool stuff to cover there. Here, where is it? It's... Oh, I have to relink it because OBS is evil. Thank you, OBS. Here is the Patreon. Here is the shop to get the What Would Piers Morgan Do parody bracelet. It's not endorsed or affiliated. It's a parody product. And here's the Discord. Please join it. I'm sorry I'm in a little bit of a mood because that pissed me off. But I appreciate all you guys. Thank you, People's Press. I didn't know you were there. Appreciate you. Watch that back if you can. I'm going to see how bad OBS chopped it up. It's not a coincidence, right? It's not a coincidence. It can't be a coincidence. The internet went out with that. Whatever. Everyone have a great night. It was a fun stream regardless. And tomorrow we'll be back with more. Appreciate all you guys. Have a great night.
Change the world. My final message. Goodbye. Change the world. My final message. Goodbye. Change the world. My final message. Goodbye. Change the world. My final message.